Well, here we are playing Galactic Destiny, and things look pretty grim in terms of, Purple's position with 8 of the sectors controlled. That's going to be really, really hard to stop. We've seen that the kind of income that generates, especially in influence, makes it difficult to target someone. The only other player, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 provinces for yellow, and other people well behind. So everybody's going to try to snipe them however they can, but that's not going to be particularly easy. Let's take a look at what the galactic events are this turn. The party of the current Minister of Justice may prosecute any senator in play who has a corruption at no cost for this turn, who has any corruption. If there's an election, it's the party of the new minister that gains the benefits. Okay. There aren't a lot of corrupt senators, so probably. Each party immediately gains an additional 10 money. We had one of these before. Caused, this is going to help get some of those expensive senators out. Especially for the players who don't have a lot of power. Maybe haven't been able to afford their best senators. The people of the galaxy have lost faith in the current government. An election occurs this turn. If an election is already going to happen, this card has no effect. Okay, well that's kind of interesting because we're going to have a dual election then. And that affects the Ministry of Justice card. And oh boy, Now, here's the thing. With all those provinces, you'd think Purple would have some advantage. And they do. They have the influence points. But they don't have the senators to win the election. And that's the weird thing about this game. It's senators that give you really the big votes here. And that makes sense in a sense, except it's not the number of senators you have. In your political alignment of areas, etc. It doesn't control your votes. It really doesn't feel all that correct to me, except that all the players are kind of minor parties where, all the power is actually concentrated in the vast majority of the sectors that aren't aligned with parties. So the senators in your party are able to sway those other people towards your vote, and your influence is used for that. But the actual territories you control give you no votes at all, which I find kind of disturbing, to tell you the truth. Okay. And I would definitely consider tinkering. It's almost as if this game has a lot of the components for the game I want, but it's not. In order to make the game simple enough to get out with this rule book, for example, it couldn't have possibly. But I'm not sure that anybody but me would want to make the game that I want to make. And it would be a very different game from this. Okay, but this immediately gets me thinking along those lines. So those are our 3 events. We also have our sectors for campaigning to draw. Let's see what those are going to be. And that's 34. 54. Which is way out here. And that's kind of a wealthy sector with no influence, basically. And 31 is over there. So nobody gets hosed with a campaign area in their own sectors. All right, time to hand out the resources and then go to that election turn, the bonus surprise election. After handing out the cards and money, I realized I forgot to roll the Kira or whatever. They had a 9, but there's 3 corruption tokens out. That gives up +1 to the shadow. Gives them 10. That means these are going to be outbreaks. It's I don't know how much effect that has. They're easy enough to defeat that you know, 3 a turn, it's just an opportunity, really. Um, it takes away the campaigning. Basically, it doesn't strengthen. I don't think attacking them is terribly valuable, but it gives you control, and then you can defend them, which is easier maybe than campaigning for something. Because instead of getting, you know, a fairly low amount of dice in most cases for a senator. Now, there are senators who are powerful. There's no question of that. We had one. He immediately got removed. It's hard to defend your expensive senators. But, you know, you've got a 6 defense here. Most senators aren't that potent. So by attacking it, you get a bit of an edge. And then you can still throw your influence in, etc. and defend it pretty well. So it's almost a free gain. Granted, there is the chance of a campaign coming against you, but you know it's cheaper than dealing with other options. Now, obviously, white is a tastier morsel because you just get those provinces when you attack them. All right. Well, we're gonna go into the Senate phase. I've given the money out, etc., including that plus 10 you saw. We've got ourselves the election cycle here. I also looked at some of the sector abilities because I haven't seen any of the inner sectors come up for campaigns, and it's possible they're just not in the deck. That those sectors you have to kind of illegally take. And if that's the case, I wanted to see, okay, since some of us have been willing to illegally take, especially red, who has less of a penalty for it, just how good are they? And some of them have kind of nice bonuses. The best bonus is at the first sector, of course, and that's just +1 to all the influences on your senators. Now that's a huge, huge bonus, but that's also a big fleet to cope with as long as it's there. So if people vote to move that, someone may take the stab for it. Well, the senatorial phase is over, and it was quite a long one actually because bullets kept flying all over the place. Basically, there was a really hard call between some of the factions here. Blue and yellow couldn't come to an agreement as to how to split up the goods, as it were. Starting especially with the Prime Ministry, which they eventually handed off to red through an agreement to prevent things from degenerating. But even then the Ministry of Justice came up, and there was quite a strong groundswell to get it in the other red characters' hands from different positions. But basically it ended up running off of purple, who had tremendous influence and ended up spending a lot of it to get the Justice Department. And 2 coalitions. Basically yellow, who had red's support, I guess, towards getting it into red's hands, and they eventually got blue's support in that actually, but green wouldn't support it. And then a blue-green coalition which was trying to say, hey, let's not have any prosecutions except against purple. Mixed in with this, there were investigations for financial irregularities against all kinds of people by both finance ministers, the outgoing and incoming. A lot of influence was spent, and really not a lot of effect. A lot of assassination attempts. Not just cards, but characters using their special bonus and flipping over and firing some bullets. So, no one died. There were some fines levied, you know, against some of these corrupt people, but no one was executed. So the overall was pretty minor. We got some corruption on a new guy who got hit with his investigation, but otherwise not a lot happened. We got an assassination that created a corruption chit. but we're not seeing, the kind of game-shaking event that all that effort should have gone into. We're seeing kind of a stasis. I was expecting, a few senators to die or something. It just didn't happen. So now we're moving into the intrigue phase, where people can actually try to use probably a lot of military means, but also the campaigns to try to sway the opinion in some of these sectors and get it over. Just not seeing the kind of force, though, that's going to stop purple. So a lot of people may be picking up corruption to try to stop them at this point. So after allocating the order of the players, let's look at what happens, because the fleets were sent out. Yellow went out grabbing at 2 of the infiltration spots to try to get control of them. That'll bring them up to 8 if they can hold them. I don't know if they can or not. They committed 2 of their admirals to fighting, or 2 of their senators as admirals. No penalty there. Purple. The reason yellow went first is that purple couldn't react. Well, purple went and is grabbing the 2 white zones. If they get those and lose nothing, they win. On to blue. Blue said, I'm so far behind. I'm not going to commit my navy against purple. I'm going to commit it against one of these. I'm not going to take corruption here. So now that's leaving it up to... Oh, I forgot green. Green doesn't think blue has all that great a shot. But they could. Yeah, they'll take... I forgot to do green, that's the problem. Blue's got 3 dice versus 1, yeah. Okay, green's gonna leave 2. Yeah, that doesn't get much either. Okay, green's gonna not worry about defense. And they're gonna position themselves over here to attack a purple. They get a couple of corruption shits for that. With... What did he do? I don't know, I've got him like targeted as something, but I don't think he did anything. He's gonna sail the fleet out and try to make an attack there to gain one of the purple spaces. And red is doing the same. He doesn't. Red doesn't get a corruption gain, and then white. Well, white also went after a purple. So there's 3 purple sectors that are being challenged here. They're only gaining 2. They're going to be falling behind if they're not careful. On the other hand, yellow is becoming a threat if they can win these battles. I'm going to fight the battles out and then go over to the campaigns. So after the elections, white extended their territory. No competition there. That's their big advantage. They can spread the rebellion continuously. However, let's look where else things happen. Blue's victory was challenged and yellow took it out. Yellow defended their own successfully, including using a seduction card against red. Now that's putting that's putting yellow in a much more powerful position. Make sure that they didn't have something. Yeah, they didn't have something that would really work. Okay, so let's see what else we have. This one's still under infestation, and that's not going to change. Has anybody won? I don't think purple won. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. They're actually down 1. Yellow's at 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, and is now the leading player, which is making purple less of the bunny here. But here's the problem. Red's next there with 2, 4, 5. Not really in striking distance, and they really feel like things are at that shaky point, and this happens in games like this, where one person can run out to the lead and then can be halted really, but the next person who catches up, now it's getting too hard to halt two people, and green's at 4, red's at 5, blue's still at 2, white's at 2. These other players just don't have the ability to step in and power it up, and this is even given that you're willing to take corruption tokens in order to make attacks, because it's just too difficult to take things away from people, especially if you go early in the sequence. Now, let's see what we got. Purple is the Ministry of Justice, and yellow has no position. So, at the very least, their fleets have to move first. So everybody can kind of pick on them. But people are really going to have to work at it, and we're already seeing some difficulty in getting that coordination going. Alright, I'm going to hand out the money, but I'm going to load this up while that's happening. Sorry, not hand out the money. I've got to purchase new fleets and new senators. There were actually a lot of casualties in this turn. Purple, for example, lost a couple of fleets. Yellow failed in their attack here, and they lost some fleets on that. So we may see purple getting a bit of cash coming in at this point. We see the influence markers largely got drained. The only person with a lot is red is still holding 16. They would have spent to take this away from yellow, but the seduction prevented them from having a good shot. Nobody else had a really good shot at that territory. All right, let me clear these up, and yeah, then I do purchases for the different groups.